I'm Michael Richard. I am the farm director here at Recirculating Farms. In the back is Hillary. Over here we have Linda. This is Jesse Chubb. He's going to be our instructor for the day. This is our Jackson site. We host classes here every Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30. All of our classes are free. They're open to the public. We also host classes on Tuesdays for veterans. That's every other Tuesday. It's for veterans and their families, so they can come here. And then we also we do a lot of other activities as well that we do on Instagram, but that must be kind of plugged into over here. So please share the word. We're very happy that you all are here. If you haven't yet signed in, please scan the QR code. That's how we keep attendance. And also if we need to send out any additional information or anything like that, that's how we'll do it. Hopefully everyone grabbed a survey as well. Please fill out that survey. It's very, very important for us. The front survey is like an intake survey. The back survey is where you tell us what you know about the class, maybe what other classes you'd like to see. That's really important data for us. That's how we're able to keep our grant funding. And also it allows us to better serve our community so we know what y'all want so we can make it happen. Find incredible instructors like Jesse did. Yeah, so this is a two-part class. Today we're doing the instruction part, and then this Sunday we're going to go do apply it in the field. So if you leave early, maybe tap one of us so we can make sure that we email it to you, but please stay the whole time if you can, and thank you again for coming. I'll turn it over to Jesse.
Thank you guys. I see a few familiar faces. This is a mushroom class. Not many, so this is definitely a good place to start. Everybody has a flyer? Well, basically, I'll just start with my little intro. Foraging is about trying to find wild food. Success is basically, measured by our understanding of the environment, how we engage our environment, where we go looking for these items, and of course the knowledge that we have before we get out there. Urban foraging is like any other type of foraging, other than in an urban environment there's a lot more human activity. There's a lot of invasive plants that have been brought there, ornamental plants, flower beds, just a lot of stuff that wouldn't naturally happen in this area. So being able to recognize some of these invasive and opportunistic pretty plants that we like to have in our lawns is definitely a really important part of urban foraging. Because, when we go out in the woods, we're not going to be finding them. However, in town, it's everywhere. So, that being said, I have listed several different items here. I would strongly encourage that you look them up on your phone. Feel free to take a screenshot of anything that interests you so that you have a nice color reference, maybe read up on it a little bit. I tried to pick items that are pretty common in our area. So, I shall begin. Broadleaf plantain is a medicinal item. It's a really common plant that you'll find just walking in the grass. It's full of food and medicine. Traditionally, if you have like a mosquito bite, which probably everyone here is going to get a mosquito bite tonight, you would take the little plantain leaf and you chew it up. The enzymes in your saliva help to break it down. And you would take that green spit and you would rub it on there, and that's how they took care of insect bites for quite a while. It's still gross, but it still works. Broadleaf plantain is also a source of wild grain. You might find that you come across a situation where there's a lot of broadleaf plantain. When it goes to seed, it's super easy just to reach down there, grab the top of the stalk, and fill up your hand with a little handful of seed. It might not seem like much, but after 10 or 15 of them, you have enough there where it's enough to mill as a grain. There's other items like giant ragweed, which has a horrible reputation. Grows everywhere around here. It's all over the place. Those items, when they go to seed, they can also be used to be milled for a non-gluten grain. There's a lot of other items that can be used to make grain. Curly dock is one of the things in here. Curly dock is super common. Grows throughout the year. You've seen it. You probably hated it. You probably wanted to kill it, because it grows in our beautiful lawns. And it's a really big, noticeable plant. It has these big stalks that come up from it. Same thing, when it's dry, you can go in there, you can grab these stalks, end up with substantially more of the grain that's basically like buckwheat. Again, it's non-gluten. It's a wild grain. It's an ancient grain. People have been using these types of grains for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Before they started farming, this is what you did. Get something curly dock, broad plantain, those two right there are really good examples of a plant where if you go there at the right time and you gather the seed, you can dry it out and basically use it throughout the year for different things. Purslane. Purslane is such a beautiful plant that you can find it in Home Depot. Oh, thanks, man. Alright. Yeah, this is purslane. This is a really good example. It's very high in antioxidants, very healthy, very delicious. One of the things interesting about purslane is that if you go out there in the morning before the sun has hit it, and you taste the purslane, it has a very lemony, fresh, very distinctive flavor. If you get it after the sun has hit it, some chemical processes take place where it gets more of an asparagus flavor. So pretty neat that you can find purslane usually growing along sidewalks, up along the wall. It's threading itself through the grass. It's a really common plant. Because it's so common, you have to be very mindful of its ability to soak up pesticides, or herbicides, heavy metals, things that you don't necessarily want to eat. So that's why it's really important that even in an urban environment, you're dealing with basically the way that this yard was created. Is they ripped off all the natural stuff. They took some sand, some sterile sand, and then they covered it with some grass, and then they made sure that nothing else grew here. That's how things are done in our little modern world. So you have to be really mindful that the soil that they brought here might not have come from the best places. So it's really important to try to stick to wild places that haven't been messed with a lot by people.
Do you also have to worry about if floodwater comes on it, if it's so close to the street?
For sure. I've also found that low-lying areas, for the most part, are not really good areas of forest. You can find some specialized things out there, but a really good reason not to go to those areas is what you just mentioned. Low-lying areas generally collect water. The water doesn't go anywhere. It basically stays there until it evaporates. You can get concentrations of bad things in some of these marsh areas. So it's really important, especially when you're dealing with something like purslane that just sucks the essence out of the earth. It's full of nutrients and water. So I mean, if it's in bad water, it's not a good thing to eat. Lyre-leaf sage is a beautiful, delicate flower. It's just this beautiful little pink flower. Comes up on a little stalk. It's not real big. It's about this big. It's in the mint family. Not only is it gorgeous and something that you'd probably be happy to transplant, take the seeds and grow at home, but it's really good for like salads. You can pick out the little leaves and eat it. It's a really delicious plant. One that's worth getting to know. Greenbrier. I know I'm just naming off all this crap, and then please ask me some questions. It's hard for me to teach this subject without going throughout the seasons, because if I were just to pick what's going on right now, this would be a considerably smaller list, because a lot of these items you'll see in the spring, in the late spring, and they're prolific. They're everywhere. Yes, sir.
So, is there something common that tells you it's edible?
I'm glad you asked that. The simple answer is no. The more complex and correct answer is yes. We, as human beings, are products of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years of evolution. Before our little modern world, when we went to grocery stores and everything was like labeled for us, people would have to go out there and eat weird stuff to try to survive. So I would say that through the process of elimination, there's certain things that our senses are attuned to that are really easy to recognize things as food. That is never always going to be true. But if you find something and you're not sure if it's edible, well, the simple answer is don't freaking eat it. Don't eat it unless you're absolutely sure, because I mean, there's so much stuff out there that can kill you. One of the things that people would do, like say for instance, I was dropped off in Venezuela. I had nothing to eat. I was sick of eating bugs, and I was kind of trying to find plants that I might eat in a completely alien and foreign environment. It'd be very easy for me to die, to eat the wrong thing, to lean against the wrong tree. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there that can kill you. But there's some basic tools that humans have been using for a long time. One of those being that your wrist is a very sensitive place. If your wrist doesn't like it, your mouth is definitely not going to. Smell. You know, if it smells good, it increases the odds that it's edible, but it definitely doesn't mean that it's edible. So, if you want to be sure, you have to become familiar with these things. And the easiest way to do that is just to get out there and, you know, if something looks interesting, then look it up. And even if it's not edible, you're going to know forever that it's not edible. You know, and that's just one little thing that you can keep in there. And, yes, ma'am.
You said that there's like certain things on here that are like in abundance now. This is more like a comprehensive list.
Yeah.
What are the things that are available now? Because I'm like, I can star those ones especially.
Absolutely. Elderberry is a really interesting plant in that you'll find some elderberry somewhere that's about to flower and about to make fruit. On this particular plant, you can take those flowers and dip them in pancake batter and fry them and make a elderberry fritter. That's a thing. People in other places do that. Here in America, we don't really mess with that stuff too much.
You can also make liqueur.
Excuse me? What?
You can make liqueur out of the flowers.
Absolutely. You can take the essence. I love to make wine. And one of the things that I've gotten into is making floral wines. You can totally take an elderberry blossom and take advantage of the wild yeast that's on it. And it's really easy to make like an elderberry blossom sparkling water. Banana is fantastic. We're really fortunate here in that these wild bananas grow all over the place. If you're lucky enough to have a wild banana tree, turning it into viable fruit is really as simple as cutting off the flower when the little bananas start to show themselves.
Oh.
You do that, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of really tasty bananas like you would find at Ideal Market, because somebody cut off a banana and they sold them at Ideal Market. So wild banana is a wonderful resource. You're not going to find those in fruit too much right now, I don't think. Yeah, but
I have a question. So like bananas are like a berry, and they're like blackberries and blueberries and stuff around. Are they, should you avoid those? They're like near pesticide areas. There are certain fruits where it's kind of safe to eat generally, even if they might have been exposed to pesticides in certain plants.
I'd say no, be picky. You know, if you find a banana tree in a compromised area, that's great. There's probably going to be more around there. You know, pat yourself on the back for identifying an edible plant, knowing that if you keep looking, you're going to find it. Bananas are like straws. I mean, they just suck the water right out of the ground. You know, it's made about the water. So I'd be really reluctant to mess with bananas that were, you know, next to a road, you know, or even like places like canals where they spray.
Yeah, is that true of other berries too, like elderberries or like blackberries and mulberries, things like that? All of them?
That's for sure something that, you know, you definitely have to be conscious of, because, you know, it's pretty common practice to spray terrible chemicals. Most people wouldn't consider that food, but it is. Let's see, wild lettuce is something that is in season right now. Wild lettuce, you wouldn't really want to eat it, but it's really good medicine. And it's one of those things where if you were so inclined, you could make a tincture of it, and it'd be probably really easy to sell. But it's basically a painkiller. It's not in the opiate family, which is good because it's not addictive, but it's pretty strong. That is a plant that is freaking tall. It's taller than me, and so it's pretty noticeable when it's bigger. You want to harvest that when it's big, after it's flowered, because that's when it's just full of the white sap.
You said you don't want to eat it because it's like bitter or something? Or?
Oh, it tastes horrible.
Oh, okay.
You definitely wouldn't want it. It's alkalines, bitter, nasty, gross. Don't eat it. And I bet there are a lot of different things that this. Sow thistle is something that you might be able to find right now. It's a delicious leafy plant. It looks like something you wouldn't want to eat because it looks like it has thorns on it, but they're just there for show. You know, and if you get that plant when it's kind of light green and younger, it's actually pretty darn good. Lamb's quarter is such a neat plant. One of the reasons why we find it everywhere today is because it was absolutely farmed by ancient peoples. Lamb's quarter is drought tolerant. It grows in the worst possible soil. It's got so many minerals on it that there's a white ashy powder on top of it, which actually could be used for salt. If you were in the middle of freaking nowhere and you wanted to cook your possum with your wild greens, you didn't have any salt. You know, if you had enough lamb quarter, you could dip it in water. And if you like spinach, you're gonna like lamb quarter, maybe better, because it's a little thicker.
Does it cook down like spinach? Like, do you eat a massive amount of it to make?
Because it's so healthy and so full of minerals, you probably don't need to eat a lot, but just 3 or 4 plants would be enough to have a nice little side dish. You know, really a really good plant to learn, but also a really good plant to consider growing at home, because you don't even have to water. You don't have to give it good soil. One of the best ways to find this plant is when there's a construction site and they dumped a bunch of river sand on there and there's nothing growing there at all, and then you see like these little splashes of green. Probably it's going to be lamb's quarter and wild amaranth, which aka pig's foot. Wild amaranth is another one where it's full of edible seeds, it's high in protein, the leaves are edible, the seeds are edible. It's just a fantastic, really good plant that is actively targeted and killed on site by farmers and people in their lawns. So wild amaranth, aka pig's foot, and lamb's quarter are 2 really good ones to start with, because if we are talking about urban foraging, you know, where, you know, you're not surrounded by fruit trees, you know, and you're hungry, you know, well, you can probably find lamb's quarter and amaranth, you know, in the most desolate places where nothing else would grow. Which to me is quite interesting, because, I mean, why aren't we farming lamb's quarter? It's so good, it doesn't need much water, it doesn't need good soil, we should be farming the crap out of lamb's quarter. So, you know,
You could start a business.
we can start farming lamb's quarter. You know, bring that stuff home and put it in a corner. You're going to be happy to eat it. Selenium. Selenium is an interesting plant. It's a nightshade. People are scared of it in this country. However, in other parts of the world, they actively fry up the leaves, and you know it's a pretty regular food source. It can be high in oxalates, which will give you kidney stones. And so, personally, I don't mess with the leaves. But the little black berries that grow on it, I've eaten them every time I see them for years and years and years. However, if the berries are not completely black, if they're green, they'll make you really freaking sick. So it's one of those plants where you don't want to eat the berries until they're black. And people make jelly out of it. I think it's called like devil's jelly because it's black. And it's an interesting plant.
Are you referring specifically to American Black Nightshade, or okay?
Yes, I am.
So I know there's some others under that name.
I am using common names, and you know that's unfortunately there's some overlap there. But yeah, that American nightshade, it's in the same family as potatoes, tomatoes, all sorts of different things. If you look at it, it really looks like a tiny little black tomato, and it's not really sweet, but you can tell that it's nutritious. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I eat something that's really healthy, it's almost like my body's like, you know, like, thank you, you know? And it's one of those things where, you know, I eat it, it makes me feel good.
Isn't there something similar with elderberry where you can't eat them unless they get down?
All sorts of stuff like that. Elderberry is a very good example. Probably similar chemicals. But if you eat green elderberries, you will get super sick. So, you know.
You can't eat the leaves of those nightshades. American nightshade probably like the only one.
And I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, people do, but I'm just like, there's just so much stuff out there to forage. I mean, I'm not in a famine situation where I'm about to die, you know. Nobody wants to eat an unripe berry. I don't care if it's a grape, a strawberry, you know, that's a good example of your hardwired senses telling you don't do that.
So for you in foraging, it's more about the nutrition of the plant than like the taste. Okay.
I'm at the point where I'm picky. I only get the best stuff, and I might find it, but I might not eat it. I'm surrounded by stuff. For me, it's fun just to go out there and point to all the stuff. You know, I don't know. I eat what I want. You know, I like green briar a lot. Green briar is absolutely delicious. If you're walking along the trail or you know, going to the park or whatever, you'll see this thing popping out of the ground, and it looks like it has thorns on it, and it does have thorns on it. But on the top of it is a really nice light green growth. You break it off where it is flexible, and it's so good. It's like it's kind of like eating, like if you were to take the outside of a sweet pea pod and mix it with spinach or something. It's just really, really good. It's so good that chances are the other critters are going to get it before you do. Someone else have this.
I've been told by, I had a friend that forages that visited here, but she's from Ireland, and she's like been eating wild food for 3 months and nothing else, which is crazy. She's really good at it, but she told me when she came here, which I didn't know this, that apparently the acorns here, you don't have to leach them before you eat them.
Depends on the acorn.
Yeah, and she, like, what's like the differences with those? Because I know that where she's from, she's like, oh, you don't leach them, like, you're in for a bad time. What would you say?
That is a fantastic question. Here in Louisiana, we have a white acorn tree that makes these acorns that are like this wide. Like they're just these super massive, big, freakish acorns. Those are great. White oak is the other one. White oak. Like water oak, acorns are going to be super bitter. You probably have to leach that out 4 or 5 times.
I mean, it was bitter when we had it, but it didn't really bother me. But I think what she was saying was that the ones up near her, it's not just that they're bitter, it's that it will actually like, maybe turn your stomach a little. But I didn't eat a whole ton of them though, because I was like, like you're used to Ireland. This is not Ireland. I'm just gonna take it salt.
When I was a kid, I ate some little acorns, and I nothing happened to me. But you know, they are kind of bitter. Yukon holly is an indigenous plant that grows around here. It's the only plant around here that you're going to get caffeine, like a high amount of caffeine, not enough to where you use it. Because you can get like caffeine in orange leaves, but it's just such a small little amount, you know. But Yukon holly makes a really good tea. The way you do that is you pick the leaves when they're kind of young, before it goes to berry. You put it on a cookie sheet, throw it in the oven at the lowest setting with the oven open, and roast it at a low temperature. And it's like, you know, the more green it is, the more green it's going to taste. The more dark you roast it, the darker notes it almost turns into kind of nutty. But it's a really good tea. I mean, if you could go to Rouse's and buy Yukon holly in the tea section. But I'm telling you, it grows all around. Get you some. It makes a really, really, really good tea. Some of these other items also make good teas. Blackberry is a really good tea. If you take blackberry leaves, it's a good diuretic and cleanser. So like you could take blackberry leaves and some Yukon holly. And we haven't gotten there yet, but there's a bunch of flowers that are edible. You can throw some flowers in your tea. Stone fruit all have cyanide. Whether it's a peach, a cherry, you know, choke cherry, you know, apricot, all that kind of stuff. It's super common in stone fruit. So the good news is that it comes out. So you know, you don't have to worry about cyanide poisoning unless you split open the pit and eat the inside. If you are going to harvest choke cherries, I'd highly recommend freezing them before you use them.
Can you also, you touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but can you just go to a little bit more detail about like what a compromised area is? You talked about like low-lying areas and fire roads, but I've had a lot of anxiety to do urban farming because of my nervousness around pesticides and chemicals and stuff. So
then you should go to LSU Ag's website and send them a soil sample of your yard or wherever you're growing stuff. They'll tell you exactly what's in it. You know, they'll tell you if it needs calcium, you know, like whatever. That should set your mind at ease. Or just start doing container growing, which is what a lot of people do, is to avoid all that.
when I do the foraging though, I think of like, I have a small garden that stores researching, like, for example, local, like Audubon Park. If I find something at Audubon Park, is it safe? Do you know the spray practices there, or?
You know, Audubon is heavily sprayed.
Yeah,
Like
the
City
golf
Park
course.
is not.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I'm so fond of going to wildlife management areas, just because they're freaking huge, and you can go out there and nobody messes with you, and you just walk for miles and miles and miles. You know, I find Honey Island Swamp is a really good wildlife management area. They have a nature trail that's about 2.5, 3 miles long, and when I'm going foraging, that's where I'm going. That's the other thing is LSU is also a great resource in telling you, what you should grow. What has proven itself to grow good in our environment. So I would strongly recommend that as we go out there and we forage, if there's items that you really like and you have the opportunity, bring them home. Plant some of that stuff and domesticate it. Eat it whenever you want. Eat it for the rest of your life. You can have a nice little grow out of like old milk containers and stuff. Mustard greens are super common around here. You'll find them in lawns pretty much throughout the spring and summer. It's mustard greens. You can go to the store and buy mustard greens, or you can just go out and get some mustard greens. It's really easy to identify them. Very common. So if you're looking for an easy green to harvest, mustard green, lamb's quarter, purslane, those wild amaranth. There's some really healthy, delicious greens that are available throughout most of the season. Watercress is another one. Watercress likes moist soil. Lord knows we have enough moist soil around here, and it's delicious. People eat watercress in fancy places, but if you know what it looks like, you can find it in a low-lying area where the ground's a little spongy, and it just grows in copious amounts. One of the ornamental plants that I'd like to talk about is Japanese yew. Japanese yew is not only the preferred wood for making bows. If you wanted to make a bow out of wood, it's the best wood for making bows. But it's a really neat plant in that it's an ornamental grown all over the place. The first place I found it was in River Ridge. The second place I found it was Cheers on Edenborn, growing in a little pot. While I was drinking my beer, I was like, oh crap, there's Japanese yew. It's all over the place. Japanese yew is interesting in that it has like a green growth at the end of the branch that looks almost like a caper, which is poisonous. Very foul tasting, you wouldn't want to eat it when you try it. But on the end of that is this almost like this grape looking thing that's, I'm probably going to butcher this word, but mucilaginous. It's slimy, but it's delicious. It tastes like just this slimy little grape. If you're looking to grow an ornamental plant at your house, Japanese yew is a good candidate for that. Just because you'll be able to enjoy the fruit off that thing for a long time. Vast majority of people would never ever think that was something you could eat. So nobody's gonna steal your fruit.
Medicinal, are they also analgesic? The other one is very good.
I enjoy Passiflora Imparta as a medicinal item. When I find it, it's hard for me not to harvest the leaves and the flower. Because I know if I just leave it alone, I'll end up with some passion fruit. But it's really an interesting medicine. The way that I take it is I'll put it in the freezer, and once it's frozen, then I dry it, and it dries really fast. And you can take the leaves, the young growth, and the flowers, and once they're dry, make a tea out of it. And you can look up the effects of it, but it's a mild narcotic. You're not going to get wasted on it, but it's basically really nice and relaxing. It's supposed to help you have really colorful dreams. So I would say drink it before you go to sleep. You know, it's supposed to be really good for insomnia. You know, if you have trouble sleeping, passion fruit tea is a really a nice little nightcap. We have basically 2 different types of grapes that are super common here. Muscadines, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and fox grapes. Fox grapes are the tiny little sour ones that are probably more common. And the cool thing about fox grapes is they're super sour and nobody would want to even eat them until they start to dry up and get wrinkly on the outside. And then when you taste it, it's unlike any grape you've ever had. It's like this, it's surrounded by juice and then it has this little fleshy center. And it's just this really complex, delicious grape that never tasted before. You think you know grapes, but I'm telling you, they're pretty darn good. I've about covered most of that stuff. I would like to go over mead. You know, if you get American basswood, sassafras leaves, some pine needles, especially like the little spruce tips, they can be quite delicious. They can be used to cook. Mulberry leaves are edible, but you would really want to stick to like the young growth, like when they're still real light green. And just because they're edible doesn't mean they're going to taste good. There's a reason why we don't eat leaves a lot, but they are there.
Is that red and white mulberry?
Yep. A little story about mulberry. I won't digress too much, but you know the whole reason that we have these mulberries is because they tried to set up the silk trade here in Louisiana, and it didn't work out. You know, so, but we still have mulberries all over the place. And if you just happen to be wandering around, you'll find little silk cocoons like underneath picnic tables and stuff. Yeah, just because they're around. Edible flowers. The reason that I threw this in here is because when we are talking about an urban foraging environment, you may find that in feral yards and stuff, they won't have a lot of these other items because they're just so actively try to kill it and make sure that it doesn't grow there. But they will have a beautiful display of American daylilies. And daylilies, you know, they're edible. All of them are edible. And if you look them up, you get to know daylilies. It's a really, really, really common plant that you can eat. However, the oriental lilies are all toxic. So it's one of those things where you really kind of have to know what you're looking for. Everybody's sweating and getting hot, so, I mean, would you like me to open up just to straight up questions, or do you have any other questions?
Magnolias are also edible.
I'm sorry?
Magnolias are also edible.
I've never fooled with magnolias.
Is there any like restaurants here that you think are really good at incorporating foraging ingredients?
No.
Dang it! I was
No,
really
there's got to be some liability on using some of the side.
I know it's true.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, they have their tiki farm.
We take on the liability if we sell it to
I
them.
know.
I think there's a need for something like that. I mean, if you had like a little farm of lamb's quarter, purslane, and you know some of these different things that are delicious, you know, why not incorporate that in your dishes? I could probably sell it. That's a damn good idea. Yes, I think somebody should do it. So.